The strike missions introduced in the Icebrood Saga release cycle are some of the easiest instant content in Guild Wars 2, but you still felt the need to click on this video before trying them. Lucky for you, they're a great introduction to endgame content. That is, if by great introduction, you mean easy encounters that barely even teach you endgame fight mechanics. There are 7 strikes in IBS, which the community have lovingly divided into subgroups, such as the Easy 3 and Fast 5. We'll get to why the last 2 are left out later. Completing these strikes awards you with blue profit shards and lots of eternal ice shards. They're highly profitable, so you should really be doing them right now instead of watching YouTube. Strike number 1, Shiverpeaks Pass. This fight has no meaningful mechanics and little to no damage pressure. I would be genuinely impressed if any group somehow managed to wipe to it unless they literally didn't bring a healer. Strike number 2, Fraenir of Jormag. Congratulations! It is reasonably possible to get downed in this fight if all 10 players stack during the spread mechanic and your squad doesn't have a Scourge. Don't get too excited though, because you're going to spend half the fight frozen in ice. Once you learn to jump over the shockwave, the Fraenir will run off, and it'll be time to fight the fucking Icebrood construct again. Strike number 3, Voice of the Fallen and Claw of the Fallen. The hardest part of this fight is getting the achievement for CCing the boss 5 times, because the only way they'll survive long enough to use that attack even once is if you convince your entire squad to stand there and do nothing. This is the first fight that you'll have any real risk of actually losing. There are 2 bosses, and once one dies, the other moves to the center and begins spamming huge AoEs that are actually kind of tricky to avoid. Luckily, this can be completely avoided if you just split your damage between the 2 bosses, so the second is about to die once you kill the first. Sometimes, a very intelligent commander will instruct the squad not to split their damage in this way. When this happens, be prepared to waste 2 to 3 minutes before the squad potentially wipes, after which you may proceed to do the fight correctly on the second attempt. Strike number 4, Boneskinner. Congratulations, you've beaten the Easy 3. Now it's time to move on to the next step up, the Fast 5. Unfortunately, this is also where your journey ends, because Boneskinner is the hardest boss in the game. This fight contains an incredibly difficult mechanic where the boss will create small AoEs under everyone's feet, which kill you almost instantly. There is only one method to counter this attack, but it is so difficult that no player on LFG is capable of performing it. Stacking on the tag and walking slightly to the left. Be prepared to dedicate years of your life to attaining enlightenment in order to master the incredibly difficult walk slightly to the left technique. Be aware, however, that your companions may simply be unable to learn this technique no matter how hard they try. If this is the case for your squad, consider a practical solution, such as crying or weeping. Aside from stepping slightly to the left, Boneskinner is not particularly difficult so long as you have competent healers, preferably Scourges, since they can save squadmates who fail to walk slightly to the left. Just keep in mind that the Boneskinner is a liar and a cheater, as his big AoE attacks land way before the ground indicator says they will. If your squad struggles to stay alive even after mastering the step slightly to the left technique, consider having someone bring a reflect to protect you from the wisps. Alternatively, get good. Strike number 5, Whisper of Jormag. If Boneskinner forcing you to walk to the left made you piss yourself, take a moment to mentally prepare for Whisper of Jormag. This fight features terrifying mechanics, such as getting thrown into the air over icicles. Oh no, what do you do? The answer is simple. Nothing. That sounds like your healer's problem to me. Get ready for mechanic number 2. Calmly walk away in a straight line during the spread. If someone else's straight line happens to overlap with yours, I recommend panicking and running towards several allies so that you kill as many people as possible. Watch out, here comes another mechanic, evil doppelganger of yourself that dies in like 3 hits. This may be daunting, but just make sure to keep your cool as you land 3 hits. If you're a healer, take a breather and just wait for the DPS players to kill your doppel for you. God knows you need it. Okay, I've been fucking with you with those ones, but here's a really difficult mechanic. Chains. These things will rapidly murder any player who overlaps them. If you get a chain attached to you, there's a complex process you must complete in order to minimize the havoc you wreak upon your allies. Calmly walk over to the boss in a straight line away from the stack. This may seem to be an impassable challenge at first, but I believe in you. Towards the end of the fight, the Whisper will start pulling this bullshit. If you have a Necromancer in squad, pay them as much bribe money as is needed to convince them to bring Fleshworm, which can completely block this attack. If nobody in your squad brought Fleshworm or an alternative, consider crying or weeping. With that, we finally finished the Fast 5, which means it's time for the other two. Strike number 6. Forging Steel. Forging Steel is not a strike mission. It is an instanced meta event just like Twisted Marionette, Tower of Nightmares, or Battle for Lion's Arch. You can tell because, just like those 3 metas, nobody ever runs it. If you're working on the Legendary Amulet, make sure to familiarize yourself with this map, because you'll be spending a lot of time here. The instance mainly consists of a rather straightforward escort mission, with some extra mini-events along the way. At the end, you'll face the boss from the Dredge Dungeon story path. Remember that? No? The boss is pretty simple. Protect the tank from enemies, and survive the boss's attacks until Rinoa gets off her ass and decides to let you use the harpoon. The harpoon will let you CC the boss, so it falls over, allowing you to do your beloved damage rotation on it. The game definitely wants multiple people to use the harpoon together, but other players never will, if you even go in with other people. Luckily, you can solo the CC if you spam the button fast enough. Alternatively, just play a ranged class. Strike number 7, Cold War. Back to real strikes for our finale. And it's time for everyone's favorite memorable boss, Verinia Stormsounder. You know, you remember her, right? She was kind of rude to you in Grothmar Valley. They didn't give her a name until really late in the story for some reason. Yeah, her. Well, who cares who she is? Since this fight isn't included in the Fast 5, and it's the last one, it must be an incredibly long, difficult, and grueling battle that really tests your skills. The instance starts with an unskippable 8-minute long wave defense section, which isn't particularly hard and never gets old. At least the devs were smart and made sure to let you airstrike the trash mobs 2 or 3 times for some extra dopamine. Verinia herself isn't a particularly dangerous boss either. Most of her special attacks are very well telegraphed and easy to avoid. Just make sure to dodge whenever she calls for her assassins, or else the rest of your squad will laugh at you while you lie on the floor. And that's that for the IBS strikes. If you enjoyed this video, and it didn't hurt your feelings too much, consider dropping a like or subscribing, and comment down below if you'd like more videos in this style.
And I like to spin.